Yeah.
And on the social media, if I'll post, do any kind of advertisements that I have sold this house 40,000 lesser as per it has been listed, do I need to still
Mhm.
mention my brokerage name? Okay.
Okay, so let's actually do a quick session on that since this is this is an important topic, right? As you're practicing. So let me just take you through RECA's marketing rules. Okay. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at some advertising rules from RECA. So some of the things is a broker remains responsible, right? So broker is responsible for the marketing or any kind of ads, any kind of post that you guys are doing. The broker is responsible. So broker's responsibility is to make sure the real estate professionals in that brokerage are following the rules. So you're always marketing on behalf of the brokerage. And the reason for this is, for example, let's say you worked for TELUS, right? And you were their salesperson, you're working for TELUS. So in this case, you are marketing on behalf of TELUS. You cannot market on your own behalf. So you always have to have brokerage name in your ad. So it doesn't matter what brokerage you're with, brokerage name needs to be there, and this is why the broker is responsible. So the advertising cannot be false or misleading. So you cannot lie, right? So you cannot say you sold the house 40,000 over asking if you didn't, right? You cannot say that you are the top producer if you are not. Okay. So any kind of performance claims have to be based on truth. So you have to be able to prove that you are the top producer. If you say you are the top producer in Canada, you have to be able to produce show the results, like where you are, how are you able to claim that. So if you're holding yourself as a specialist in a given area, you need to have the specialization in that area. Like you can't just call yourself condo specialist if you have not done any kind of training, or you don't have significant experience in that. So you cannot be a new agent and call yourself condo specialist unless you have condominium, a lot of experience, or you've done courses. Okay. Okay, so in this case, like if you have one person, like you are the real estate professional, you cannot have your assistant on in your ad there. So you can only do advertising on behalf of the brokerage, even though it's your social media post. You are the real estate professional, you are marketing your property that you sold or the buyers that you represented. But because you are considered on from RECA side, you are considered salesperson for the brokerage. You can only market on behalf of the brokerage. So, for example, if TELUS sales representative was kind of doing any kind of promotional ads, or they were doing any kind of promotion, we have $0 phone or whatever, it has to say TELUS, right? They cannot do it on their own behalf. So same thing here, you're working as a salesperson for the brokerage, so all advertising needs to have brokerage name in there, and you have to include the full name of the brokerage. You cannot shorten the name. So our brokerage is Venus Realty, so we have to say Venus Realty. It's actually Venus Realty Inc. And then what we have done is we have trademarked Venus Realty as a doing business as name. And that's why we can shorten it to Venus Realty. But let's say if we had a numbered company and we did not get an AKA name, just like you guys will get an AKA name. So let's say you have a longer name and you want to, let's say somebody's name is William and they want to, they want to use the nickname Bill. So in this case, you would have to get approval from RECA to be able to use that name, which is an AKA name. So similarly, if a brokerage wanted to use a different version of the name, so for example, let's say it was 123 Alberta Ltd. So you wanted to change that and say Remax Elite or whatever the case is. So in that case, you cannot use Remax Elite unless you have actually gotten approval for that name. And this happens, like the brokerage would have to do that. So that's the only name you can use that appears on the license. You cannot shorten it otherwise, right? So same thing, you have to use your own name. You have to use full legal name. You cannot cannot shorten your name, and you cannot call yourself Maggie Dealmaker, right? Whatever Maggie's name is, that's the whole name has to be used. So if Margaret wanted to go by Maggie because that's what people know her by, then you have to get permission. Maggie would have to get or Margaret would have to get permission and put the AKA name. So get the AKA name approved. Then Margaret can use Maggie, but she cannot call herself Maggie Dealmaker or anything like that. It would be Maggie Mosby or whatever the AKA name would be, right? So it has to stay. Another thing to keep in mind here, any kind of performance guarantees. So you have to be very careful. Do not offer performance guarantees because all of that is based on the brokerage. So you have to ask your broker for permission around that. Experience, you cannot say we have 3 people in the team and combine all of their experience. Again, don't call yourself number 1 in anything unless you truly are number 1 in terms of sales. So be mindful of that. Another thing is your logo has to be there, right? Or sorry, brokerage logo has to be there. It has to be bigger. That's a big one that comes up all the time. Oh, you also cannot give incentives or inducements on your own. It has to be on behalf of the brokerage. Okay. So in terms of advertising, another thing to keep in mind here. So this is, yeah, you can do that. You will win a trip to Hawaii, right? You can do that. That has to be done by the brokerage. Another one here. You cannot have your logo so small, the brokerage logo so tiny that you can't even see it. So it has to be nice and big, right? So people can see what brokerage you are with. And again, your team logo cannot be bigger than this logo, your brokerage logo. Your brokerage logo has to be bigger than the team logo, than your own logo, than anything else. Otherwise, you would get in trouble for that. And if you're going to say the property was sold over 10% over asking, 40,000 over asking, whatever the case may be, 99% of the asking price. So in this case, you have to get permission from the seller before you can make that claim. So it doesn't matter where you are marketing, you still have to mention brokerage name. Okay, so that is very important. So brokerage name should be there in every single post you have everywhere, whether that's social media, TikTok video, Facebook post, your brokerage name has to be there, right? Your brokerage name must be clearly indicated in all the advertisements, including classified websites like Kijiji, etc. Okay, so your full name and the brokerage name has to be there. Okay, and then again, so this one here, you have to say, this is not just the REMAX overall brand. You have to say, but what brokerage it is. So REMAX, what REMAX, right? So that has to be on there as well. And like you have to have the brokerage logo in there. Okay. All right. So those are some of the key points when doing the ads. Yeah. So this is, yeah. So this one here, he needs to disclose his brokerage name, right? So he's sending a tweet. There's no mention of the brokerage name. Brokerage name has to be there. So that goes back to your question, your original question. Do you need to include brokerage name? Absolutely. In every single ad, you need to have the brokerage name and the logo has to be bigger, right? And you cannot use RECA's logo unless you have permission from them and you're using the full logo.